About those forecasts, I'd like to welcome Nadia ElBilassy, Senior Market Analyst, joining us now with the brokerage Equiti firm. Great to have you. All right, so Federal Reserve cutting rates by a quarter of a basis point later on today. The Federal Reserve is actually quite divided on what to do, but it's been priced in largely. Do you think that's the right approach? Because it's got a dual mandate. It's got to stabilize prices, and it's also got to look at jobs growth.
Yes. Hello, Lenny. Thanks for having me. So I think it's very hard to reach the dual mandate for the Fed, where we have a very weak labor market and we still have persistent inflation. Yes, core inflation has kind of dipped backwards a little bit just for the past few months, but we still have very high inflation. And the fact that the Fed right now is divided, I think 7 out of the 12 members, they are divided whether it's for cutting interest rates. We do have a room for pause. So I think this is where we have a difference and a division. And that's why also the downside risk of this is that of the independence of the Fed because of Trump's push for the
been pressurizing Jerome Powell for quite some time, absolutely. What's also fascinating is that key data should be a driver about whether the previous interest rate cuts have been working to counter inflation, and importantly, what it's doing to jobs growth. An important jobs report is only coming out next week, which is basically counterintuitive. And I wonder how much pressure that puts on the Fed in terms of what it's going to signal, whether it's going to be hawkish or dovish in their statement.
I think they're going to be hawkish, and that's what's priced in the market, that we're going to see the 25 basis rate point cut. But for the next quarter, we might see a pause, and that's what's pulling back major indices or stocks in general. I also think that investors are really worried about the tone of Jerome Powell. I think just because there was expectations of being more dovish, but recently this week theme has ultimately changed, and now we expect a very hawkish tone. So I think that's going to basically be the major hit to the markets tonight.
Yeah. So one thing that is interesting, I mean, you've got inflation very close to 3%, and we know that the target is around 2%, and people have been asking this question: should we see the target being changed? From the 2% that it currently is. I mean, it's very difficult to hit that. The economic macro environment has changed substantially.
Agreed, 100%. I do think that because the Fed right now is prioritizing the labor market instead, we have major weakening of the labor market. We've seen almost 1,200,000 job cuts since year to date, which is the most since the pandemic. And we've also seen almost just 500,000 hiring so far this year. So I think in terms of data, the labor market really overshadows that of persistent inflation and consumer confidence. Still, somewhat lower, but it's still kind of at elevated levels. Like, it did not just majorly blow off.
Okay, we're also expecting a successor to Jerome Powell. We're waiting for a name. But actually, I want to talk about this story because, not far from here, there's Abu Dhabi Finance Week. And it's interesting to see what's going on. There was about $62 trillion worth of assets from over 100 countries gathering at Abu Dhabi Finance Week. And I mean, it's pretty extraordinary to see the people in the room there and discussing where this capital should be sitting. And I think investors are really looking for alternatives and seeing where, their money should live in a time of risk aversion where everyone's sort of rushing to gold because they're worried about inflation. What's your take on what we're seeing here in Abu Dhabi and, frankly, the GCC as a whole?
So the Abu Dhabi Finance Week is one of the most, the biggest events of the region. I think it really reflects the attractiveness and regulatory maturity of Abu Dhabi as a whole and as a global financial hub. I think the capital inflows that we're seeing right now, it's a huge amount, but it just really reflects Abu Dhabi as a global financial hub.
Very quickly, the successor to Jerome Powell. Are you hearing anything?
Kevin Hassett.
Let me ask you this. I mean, do you think the Fed's independence is going to be tested?
Yes, only because Kevin Hassett has been kind of nominated by Trump, who is pushing aggressively for lower rate cuts. But ultimately, the Fed has 12 members, and they all get a vote. But I think, it's definitely a downside risk.
Nadia, great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Much appreciated. All right, now most